the way we use money, and in personal economics, and in economics as a country. Okay, it really shows the difference between, you could say, free society and not so free society.
Sometimes in the human society, at least in the modern human society, we over prioritize the consumption, and we are almost consuming the earth by that mentality. It is erroneous because we are not the first species to exist, and we are not the only species that exists. We could learn from others. For example, look at how the lion relate with the antelope. The lion killed the antelope to eat, but the lion never killed the antelope just for the purpose of, just because the lion is powerful. The lion killed because he needs the food to eat.
After identifying a real problem and a real solution, and reevaluating the ethics and the values that you're basing that on. After doing that, it's a matter of putting together a plan, putting it into a way that is communicatable. So, as I said, a business plan, maybe do a mock website, or make a model or a prototype of your product. Hello, it's nice to meet you. My name is Sara Sky Schutte. I reside in northern Italy. I've been in Europe for over 20 years, going on 25 years. I was born in Phoenix, Arizona, and that's where I received my first bachelor's degree, which was in fine arts and liberal arts. And then I've also did a master's degree in Florence, Italy, in linguistics. And I did a second level degree, which is it's like a pre-doctorate in Milan in new technologies, communications, and multimedia arts.
In fact, I was wondering if you were an Italian born here, you grew up here, because I wanted to understand how come you speak English so fluently. So I wanted to understand that. Okay, now it is clarified, so I don't need to ask that. But in terms of your ancestry, are you coming from, are your parents coming from Italy, or can you say anything about that?
Yes, so I have Italian American citizenship. So again, I have lived in Italy over 20 years, and I have Italian citizenship. I've lived in Italy longer than I've lived in the States. So in that sense, I do consider myself also Italian, but I have also a strong American culture, and I have a strong Southwestern culture, American culture, Arizonian culture. I'm from Phoenix originally, and we have a lot of indigenous roots. My family is also Native American, and longtime American generations, but then we also have European in our family history. So, and that's very common for people coming from North America. Again, my Native American roots are very important to me. My Arizona heritage is very important to me. And I have lived in Italy for a long time for a lot of reasons. There are a lot of affinities to the Italian culture, which I really appreciate. There are different aspects of values that I appreciate in the Italian culture, such as family values, the biodiversity, which is, and the conservatism, which is a big part of Italian culture. But I am multicultural and I am multinational. So those are some aspects that I think that are important in terms of my background.
I see a lot of value in our conversation just now, and okay, there is an angle to the culture, which is really fantastic for me, because of course now talking about culture, it will automatically lead us to history or storytelling, as it were. So you were mentioning Native American culture. Do you want to say something more about that?
Yes, so that is on my father's side. We have, especially I would be fourth generation, so it's a bit diluted. But my grandmother, for example, lived on the Mexican border between Mexico and New Mexico, And then she moved to the States when she was very young. Now, she did not speak English when she moved to the States. She moved to Texas, actually, primarily, and then she moved to Arizona. But she spoke the native language, and she forgot it entirely as she was assimilated into the American culture. She was assimilated into American school, but she lost her native heritage and she lost her native culture because it was frowned upon. People did not want that. That was not part of American culture, and part of the you could say the re-educational process was to remove Native American culture. So that was interesting in terms of, my grandmother's story. Now, I do think that's significant in terms of how that impacts perspective. So in any case, she was a school teacher, my grandmother, etc. And so and also her mother was, they called her Big Mama, and she was the tribal, for the land, she was the landowner. She was the person who took care of all the economic necessities of the entire family. She owned the land and she delegated resources. And that was that's also an interesting aspect. And then on my father's side, my father, his father, so always speaking on my father's side for the moment, he came from a family of cattle ranchers. They owned big cattle ranches and farmlands in Texas. And he actually, when he was 14, he learned to fly a Piper Cub. He was a pilot, but at 14 years old, so that he could manage the cattle. He could herd the cattle. So he was a cowboy, but he used a Piper Cub airplane to do that, and learned to land in the bush on the lands on the ranch in Texas. It was a massive ranch, and he went on to teach all of the pilots. He went into military and taught the pilots to land on the rigs, so to land on the naval battleships. So, and he taught thousands of pilots how to do that. Unfortunately, he passed away when my father was very young, so I never met him. But that's part of my family heritage, and that's also one of the, I suppose my father was also a pilot, but that's why I'm also very interested in everything around piloting aircraft and different sorts of modes of transportation. But I'm a VTOL fanatic. I really enjoy helicopters and flying aircraft. So I actually work in collaboration with a few VTOL producers, or VTOL producers, which is vertical takeoff and landing sector of aircraft, which are basically, they're similar to hovercraft or drones, but they're passenger drones. And they're also called multi-copters. They have 4 to 6 to 8 to 16, etc. rotors and independent engines. And I especially enjoyed the VTOL sector, which are they're basically the battery powered or electric motor versions. And there's quite a few on the radar right now, and I keep an eye out for those. I work with one in particular, which I can speak about later, but they're very promising, and it's a very interesting industry. So I work with some local airports as well in order to expand. It's basically private and also eventually commercial taxis, air taxis, and being able to use airspace for transport. So that's an interesting area that's a passion of mine. So I also like boating and sailboats and stand-up paddle boards and kayaking and water sports. So air, land, and water, basically, I cover all those aspects of transport as well in my interests and in some of my activities.
That's interesting, Sarah. That's so interesting. In fact, we have a lot to talk about today, and I really love that. Now, but I'm curious now because, of course, from the moment you made mention of being part of Native American, and of course, looking at your heritage and understanding that you are living in Italy, which is also where I'm living in,
Yes.
that you touch also a part of your family history. It all becomes very important for me in a more deeper sense. This is for the fact
Mhm.
that here we spend a lot of time on storytelling because we believe the power of storytelling. We believe it is absolutely fundamental, whether you are looking at it from the point of view of business or you're
Mhm.
looking of how to keep our heritage. It's all
Right.
essential for us. So I'm sort of trying to understand how much does storytelling holds in what you do or in your passion too. Of course, later we're also going to talk about your activism. But tell me,
Mhm.
I'm trying to understand how much do you place on storytelling as a person?
Right. And I think storytelling gives us perspective. It gives us an idea and understanding of our ethos, of what is important to us. Everyone has a different background and story, and it greatly influences their present and their future and their areas of interest, etc. Of course, we come from families, we come from geographic locations, we come from social systems and support systems which make up our foundation for the way we behave, the way our values, what our values are, the way our ethics are, how strong our ethics play. And it's interesting on how it influences what we do and our decision making, etc. So I think it's important to identify that and to understand how that drives us. So I also come on from a mother who is extremely business minded. She was an amazing businesswoman, but she basically gave up her business for, there's four of us. I come from a family of four brothers. I've got three, but one brother and two sisters. And it's a fairly big family. And my mother was a bulldozer. She uh, gave us the best education, the best childhood. We were happy as can be, as supported as can be, and with plenty of difficulties because she was also a single mother because my father, who was always in the picture, he was not in our family structure, which is interesting, which is very different than a lot of traditional families. So I come from a very strong mother and a very supportive father too, but he was supportive as he could be. So, and I appreciate his support very much as well. But storytelling, what that does is in our lives, whether it be our history, whether it be our current activity, it is fundamental for understanding our reasoning, our logic, for understanding why we do what we do, when we do it, and how we do it.
So I was sort of curious. I'm trying to understand now.
Mhm.
At what point did you decide to focus on business, and what particularly led you into business? Since we understand now that you have a strong passion for activism, which of course
Mhm.
we are going to talk about later, then
Yes,
you have a lot of passion in other area that might not necessarily. Okay, anything can be business because business is nothing more than service. You help
right.
people, then you get something from it. That is business. So, but help me understand. At what point in your life did you pay
Mhm.
more attention to business?
Yes. So my background as well personally was in the arts. I have a bachelor's degree in fine arts. I concentrated on painting and figurative painting. And I remember all those hours and hours and hours spent in studio painting. And what I realized in my bachelor's degree, I also, studied psychology and philosophy and anthropology, sociology, etc., which I loved, which I find I've used those aspects every day in my life. But in painting, it's that idea of creating whatever you have, creating. So creating what you have in front of you. It's the idea of concentration. I can be very highly focused because of my hours spent painting, where you need to it's the form of expression, etc. So now I did visual arts, I did digital arts, I moved on, I also did sculpture, I moved on, and this was in my undergraduate degree, so when I was young. So I always worked in the arts, but even in my university years, but I graduated when I was 20 years old with my bachelor's degree. I also did theater. I did dance. I did percussion as well, and I also did African percussion, which djembe and etc., which I found to be these forms of art which are very important for personal expression. Dance and movement and theater and being able to interpret. I find that to be fundamental for the way we express ourselves and in our communications. So in the arts are difficult to translate into a career. I realized later in my life, in moving on with my studies, completing a master's degree in linguistics and going on into new technologies and communications, etc., and digital arts or multimedia arts, that there are applications there that are fundamental, but it's the business side. In the meantime, I was reading The Economist from cover to cover, from the first page to the last, every single week. And I love that magazine. I don't know if you've ever read The Economist, but I'm a big supporter. It's because of the fact that it's the logical side of it that gives you, it's understanding how the world works, how powers in the world work, what influences what. Okay, and that also includes, I love technology, I love politics. So, and those are all related. So in my education, starting, I went to private school and I had a great education where we did a big curricular that covered everything. So a good foundation in business development, okay, in politics, in world affairs, what happens in the world and how it affects each other. So, how it affects people, but how it affects the way things function. So I began to concentrate on business because I was so independent. I left when I was my first year abroad. I was 19 until I was 20 years old. And I lived in the Czech Republic in Prague and went to Charles University and the Fine Arts Academy, the Akademii Vyššího umění. And I did it by myself. Nobody paid for that. I made my own money. I've always made my own money. So it's one of those things where, coming from a family of a lot of kids with them, my mother did everything she could for us. She made sure we had the best foundation possible. My father as well. But when I left home, she gave us wings. All of us had wings that my mother gave us. So, and it's one of those things where I never doubted my ability to do that. And I did it with business. So, and again, I was an entrepreneur from the beginning. I found opportunities. I was a journalist. I worked as a makeup artist. I did interviews and did translations. I started working when I was about 14 as a babysitter, and then moved on to being a lifeguard. So I did my training. I was very focused in my training and worked as a lifeguard for a long time. So in any case, I did things where I made good money and I could study and I could complete my degrees. So, and it brought me into new opportunities. So when I graduated with my master's degree, I began working with magazines, but I did their business development, so their distribution. So, I worked for a magazine in Italy that was focused on the art market, and it was originally an Italian language magazine. Well, I worked on making it an English language magazine, or having another version in English, which we were able to export into Switzerland, France, and Austria. So, these sorts of activities, which it's that idea of making opportunity, and especially when you're working in areas you believe in, it's that much easier to concentrate on the part that is, you could say, expanding areas that you believe in. So I'm very big on ecology. I'm very big on it's human rights. Okay, especially, this is one area that there's a lot of work to do in a lot of areas in human rights. There's a lot of work to do in Italy in human rights and recognizing the rights of minorities, of international people who are coming here, understanding their value, understanding how important it is to support immigration, understanding how important it is to give opportunities and not to penalize people coming from other locations. Now, I have lived here a long time, but I am still an extracomunitaria. Okay. I stood in those lines. I did the lines in the questura to get my permits for. I mean, I and I did all of that. It was a lot of work and it was a lot of struggle. And sometimes I think, why did I do that? But I did it. And part of it was because it's that idea of pushing yourself to. I've always been very focused also on. I like challenge, but it's that thing about challenging a status quo, which should not be a status quo. And so basically in my evolution, I worked in public relations. I did communications and then public relations, marketing. Then I got into politics, and then also now I work in entrepreneurship and business development. So I expand, for example, starting a company from zero. I also taught at university, and I taught business communications in English language. And in this area, I had over 300 students. And for one of the faculties, I had all my students do business plans and start a company. And we worked on presentations. We worked on being able to formulate from A to Z to 360 degrees what these students needed to start a business. And there was a lot of success stories there as well. And it's, again, one of the areas that I've worked in a lot also in Italy is supporting female entrepreneurs, because I think it's something that in the world, when there is more equal power, also economically, given to women, there is a natural rebalancing that happens, and things naturally are more, you could say, beneficial, because resources are allocated to areas where they actually make improvements, as opposed to just being for the sake of capitalism. I'm not much of a capitalist. I'm not at all. I'm much more of a socialist, absolutely a socialist. And I believe in social democracy. And for example, in the US, I was a big supporter of Bernie Sanders. I still am. I think that was a big missed opportunity in the US. And it's unfortunate that, he was an amazing candidate. I'm not sure if you know Bernie Sanders. Yeah. Yeah. He's an amazing person, an amazing politician, amazing senator, and was an amazing candidate. I would love for him to be a candidate for the next election, but that's a whole nother story.
Absolutely. That's something that is an area I would like you to spend some time on. So, which is I'm sort of curious about how you approach business strategy, because now you talked about having up to 300 students here as a university student who went on to start their own businesses. So I'm sort of trying to understand, what is your approach in developing a business?
Okay, so basically, you look at the market. It's a matter of problem solving. Okay, so you look at the problem. What are real problems that people are facing? Okay, now sometimes problems can be situations that are fundamental. Sometimes they're little problems. Sometimes it's a matter of even just a commodity, or a matter of comfort, or a matter of making improvements that are minor. If you think like, oh, it would be great to have this service or this product, okay, something that you see an opportunity in. Maybe it's something that you work in yourself, an area you work in, and you think, okay, how can I make this available to the general public? How can I create a solution, the best solution possible to this problem? And that is generally the best place to start in a business. Okay, so finding a product, a service, a solution that you can offer, finding who you're going to offer to it, and delivering it, packaging it and delivering it the best way possible, but also with the right values in what you're proposing. So I think this is where female entrepreneurship is very important, because, and not exclusively, but very often, there is a perspective there's more of a, you could say, naturalistic approach, okay, or a value approach regarding, sometimes I think of it as yin and yang, right? Or the ego and the id. So, and almost, you could even define it as Republican and Democratic, okay, or right and left, okay. It's not the polarities are not that extreme, should not be that extreme, currently still are that extreme, okay. One is power and money and influence and bigger and better and faster and all of that, okay. And I think in some regards, if you have the right ethos and the right value, okay, there's some aspects of that are okay, but not all of them. The other side of it, which is extremely important, is that aspect of what problem are you solving? What is the aspect that needs to be improved or changed or eliminated or created? So in this, that idea of starting with a problem and a solution, proposing the solution, formulating your solution, okay? It's almost like this, I think, even my background in acting, you could say, because there's that thing of visualizing and personifying, okay? If I was this problem, then what is my counterpoint? What is going to be that solution? Or I'm the solution, okay? What is the problem that I'm looking at? So it's really getting into that as a basis to your activity. Now, after that, it's a matter of also working out all of your ideas. And this is why, for example, a business plan is the right place to start. There are a million formulas for business plans that you can research and download and find, tons of them, but it gives a good foundation for your activity. It's like a exercise in working out all of the aspects of what you're going to be doing, okay? Whether it be product development, whether it be communications, whether it be your instruments that you're going to be using, production, okay? Your plans, your roadmap, what you have your resources, what you have today, what you need. Okay, you work out all those details. It's almost like a life plan, which I also think is important to work out your life, life plans in general. But with this business plan, for example, you can open a lot of doors, okay? Because everybody, there's some bootstrap concepts where you start from zero and you build your clients, etc. And then there's also the model of getting money on board, getting resources on board, finding investors, for example. And any longer today, there are a lot of investors and there are a lot of funds available for good ideas that solve good problems, solve bad problems in a good way, let's say. What is it? Yeah. So in that, again, when you get into the details of, for example, problems that the world is facing. I have one of the startups that I'm working on, which is a beautiful, beautiful activity, which I'm really excited about. It's called Dedalo, and it's a platform that solves personal debt. It can be personal debt from entrepreneurship or from business ownership, small business ownership. It's something that the world economy currently is very much structured on personal debt, right? And it's something that, for example, the more developed the nation, the higher their debt. And it is something that creates a lot of, you could say, creates a lot of problems. Okay, so having a solution to that, or a way to consolidate that, is fundamental to be able to have, you could say, a free society, basically, because the way we use money, and in personal economics and in economics as a country, okay, it really shows the difference between, you could say, free society and not so free society. And I define free society this way. Okay, what are your true economic freedoms? And economic freedoms doesn't mean the amount of money you can potentially make, but it's the amount of money you have to spend and what your availability is. Okay, so, and sometimes money is one resource. There are a lot of resources in the world, all right? Can do so much with friendship, or assistance, mutual assistance, or collaboration, or money is just one resource. And today, the global economy, which has always been based on currencies and banking and bank loans, etc., is now being challenged because of cryptocurrencies and blockchain technologies. And thank goodness for that, because that means that we can have a decentralized society and economic system, which is not based on just the classic economic model, which, again, currency used to be backed on gold. Then it moved into petrol. And now what is it based on?
Paper. All right, that is a curiosity I do have there. Sometimes when we talk about economy in a particular sense, there was a time that there was a lot of value for what the individual could perceive as a society, and it could really refine so much, and it could make a sort of contribution without necessarily needing a salary from some other persons. No, you look at your life.
Yes.
Then you see what you can contribute to life in general. Then you go and refine this your skill, and you become a master in it at the end of the day. Nobody's employing you, but anytime somebody needs your service, they contract you for that particular task. You do it for them, and you are fine. At the end of the day, that task finished. Of course, you are paid the service for that.
Right.
You are not owned by another person, because you are a free man, that you are but able to make a contribution to the society. Now, a kind of a good example I would give to you for this is, for example, I was born and I grew up in southern Nigeria. Now, in my village, the village where I grew up in Uromi, is called Amedokiam. There was a man that I know. I've made reference to this man in a number of ways. He was a goldsmith. That he does, he prepared the trap. He does gun if you want to. Of course, for this, you have a lot of problem with the police sometimes, because you are doing a gun now. You know what that would mean. So, but he prepared the trap and he prepared your knife. So, because he was really doing this, he was really very skilled in doing this. At any time you needed those kind of tasks, you go to meet him, but you don't employ him. You go to me, he tell you how much you are going to pay. You pay him, he does the work. But because he was always doing this particular work, he was very good in that. That type of economy, of course, I just use that as an example, is different from the one that you go to school, then you are employed by a company. You are sort of a kind of a mini slave to this company. You, of course, they give you salary, but you work for this company until you are retired. And all sort of the, whatever we want to attach to that set of economy, as it were, of course, because we are talking of economy now. So, I mean, How do you make comparison to that in that society and the one that we
Yeah.
have today? And what is supposed to be a better model? I'm sort of just thinking aloud.
Right. And I think that's one of the reasons I live in Italy, actually, because I mean, and I could have probably chosen, 100, 200, 3 million places to live, or maybe even stayed in the US for a similar experience. Maybe, I don't know. But the idea is that everybody has a different aspect of value to add to society, to add to the economy. It cannot be defined by traditional means and traditional modes because we are such it's such a large world. This is a huge planet with lots of cultures and nations and people and abilities and talents. And I cannot put you can't put more value on one or another. Now, the economic systems which govern the way things are done, the rules that are made, the laws that follow them, etc., those are imposed on us, you could say, or we can influence them as well. But that is based on an economic model, which is a traditional model, but it's a recent traditional model of the last 150 years. It's been a couple hundred years that it's been in the works, but it's something that is our contemporary modern definition. It doesn't mean that it should be that way, and clearly it cannot be that way because of the challenges that not only do we face now, but we will face, and that we are continuing to face because of this model. Consumerism is not happiness. Consumerism is not success. Now, everybody has to consume because we're humans and we do have that need to do that to some extent. But I think reevaluating consumption is necessary, and valuing and putting value in areas where there actually is real value. And value is not money. That is a resource, one of many, many, many. Air is a resource. Water is a resource. Everything is a resource. Anything that's growing is a resource, but these are our natural resources. And I do very much see the difference between our natural resources and our societal resources. And societal resources, which I'm going to repeat this, which is a common theme contemporarily, and thank goodness, the patriarchy, you could say, which I cannot necessarily point a finger at anyone in particular regarding a patriarchy. It's a direction that things have gone for too long in one way that is unbalanced. Okay. It is not giving value to real value, which are things that are not necessarily they're tangible but not necessarily exchangeable for it's economic systems are just one part of our society. So
Yeah. Thank you so much for that. And that
mhm,
that cannot be overemphasized. It's so
mhm,
vital and important because now as you were making mention of other resources that are actually available, which are true and evident,
yes,
we could just take the conversation away from the human society and look at nature
mhm,
in itself. In
right,
that sometimes in the human society, at least in the modern human society, we over
mhm,
prioritize the consumption and we are
mhm,
almost consuming the earth by that mentality. It is erroneous
right,
because we are not the first species to exist and we are not the only
mhm,
species that exists. We could learn from other. For example, look at how the lion relate with the antelope. The lion killed
right,
the antelope to eat, but the lion
right,
never killed the antelope just for the purpose of just because the lion is powerful. The
right,
lion
right,
killed because it needs the food to eat.
right, right,
If you
right,
look at,
right,
there are a lot of industries in the world today where there is so much wastage, where they produce a lot of content they are
yeah,
not going to consume. What
right,
does it
right, right.
mean?
It's very interesting because it's almost it's such an extremism in the direction things have been going. It's like this fight and this push to, bigger, better, faster, more, and it's this accumulation of resources, which is unnatural. It's not. It's absolutely. There was an interesting statement about how if sociologists, if scientists studied the human factor, you could say, in terms of humans that basically hoard resources and wealth, if that was repeated in nature, if there was an animal hoarding all the resources, they would try to figure out what was wrong with that animal. There's something wrong with that animal. So clearly, now this is I do a lot of my theories and philosophies are based on a lot of research. But one of my theories regarding this and regarding our state of, multi-billionaires going on trillionaires and systems that have allowed this, right, is that idea that no value on our human state and on our planet and on our real resources, which is not, our resources are not money. Money is not our resource. That is something that we fabricated to play games, okay, with each other. It's a societal makeup that it does not. That is, so it's basically a really intense game gone wrong. Gone wrong.
Yeah, it's a game. It's a game. I like that because somebody could even think, I could even imagine, say, you go into a forest that is limited in space, you load a certain part of it with money, and you leave an individual there, only him and the money. And you go to another forest where you have interaction with nature, with animals,
Right.
with every other thing. No money, you leave an individual there. Who is going to die
Right.
first? The person that has the
Exactly.
money, of course, is going to die very fast, because what are you going to do with the money?
Exactly. And this is exactly the state that, it's like realizing that we've constructed so much around and on top of nature without valuing it enough, that, you see, of course, there's a push to go to Mars. This planet, what's going to happen to this planet? It's like this planet was a used resource. And so some of the you could say reasoning and motivation and basically the excuses being used are that, okay, we're ruining our planet, let's find another planet
To ruin the game.
right. But which, how could you allow that and people actually are on board with that? I think these multi-billionaires, their idea is, okay, we're going to have to afford we're going to have to be able to, if we're going to survive, we're going to have to be on another planet. So get as much money as possible, because that's going to be expensive. It's like, really, is this a solution? This is a problem. This isn't a solution. You're creating problems. So we are in a state, in a global state of problem creation, just one after the other, just bigger, faster, more and more problems. And it's almost like, how can you not see that? How can you not see that you're absolutely accelerating the state of chaos?
Unfortunately. Yeah. Well, because we're talking of problem, talking of finding solution to problem, which is actually business at the end of the day.
Right.
How do you develop a good business strategy that will work?
Right.
Please help us on that.
Yes. Okay. So after identifying a real problem and a real solution, and reevaluating the ethics and the values that you're basing that on, after doing that, it's a matter of putting together a plan, putting it into a way that is communicatable. So, as I said, a business plan, maybe do a mock website, or make a model or a prototype of your product. And at that point, once you have things that are presentable, you begin to present them and try to make connections that are going to get you what you need to go to the next phase. Clients, okay, having people that are wanting to buy your service or your product, but also people who believe in your product or service, so you can also potentially get investors and all of that. Now, again, it's almost like packaging what you're doing. So I do believe in the importance of having a website, having an app, doing your presentations. So this is today, this is important. Visibility is important because it is such a big world. And if we can start small, we can start with what, people around us, clients around us, etc. But it's, if you are working on something that's a real solution, getting it to the next level. So, even let's say, working outside of the box, this is a common expression, but everybody's doing it this way. Okay. You can do that. You can replicate that. And you're going to have lots of competitors. You're going to have, or you do it your way. You do it the way that you see fit. Okay. And you work on it in a way that is going to be accessible to the people that you want to be working with. Sometimes it is a redistribution of, you could say, power, influence, or economic availability. But when so let's have an example of, I don't know, you're working with animals and you want to be able to conserve a certain kind of animal. You want them to be protected, but you also want to find ways to make money from this group of animals that you're working with, for example. So there's different areas like protectionism, so making sure that they are recognized for the species they are, finding ways to give them visibility that they need. Now, sometimes, of course, with animals, we're talking about products that we need to make, right? So this is an area I also believe a lot in animal rights. I believe that, yes, we are humans, we consume animals, but there is a correct way to consume animals and an incorrect way to consume animals. So, and again, being able to find the right audience is very easy any longer because we have internet, we have communications that can reach any corner of the globe. It's a matter of thinking, what is the best case scenario? Okay, I'm working with these animals. Who pays attention to these animals? What are the global associations, the global entities that conserve, protect, or consume this kind of animal? Get to those people, but in a way that you're presenting your ethos, you're presenting your business, you're presenting your idea, no matter what that could be, but positioning yourself with the correct people as well, because we can't always work alone. We have to work with other people, and we have to work with the right people, and the right people will understand us. They will understand our business. They will understand our value. So, and not being afraid to present ourselves to the right people. I want to do this. I'm going to go right to that. And if he or she says no, I'm going to go to that person and present. And then I'm going to go to that person and present until you have the correct, you could say, even support system, because a lot of it's connections, support system, and also being able to have, again, distribution for what we're doing, or resellers, or the right revenue streams. So how are you going to get the money in? But it's based on what is the product that you have? What is the solution? Okay. And again, there are a million ways to do that in a correct way where you are giving value to what you're doing. So, and sometimes it's as simple as, I'm really good at, I'm really good at, I don't know, writing emails and messages. And so find who needs that. Any longer we work in a global economy, and in our global economy, there are remote solutions, and there are remote, even if it's a matter of whether it be, packaging your services and offering it to a company. Okay, I'm able to do this and this and this. Okay, whether it be, whatever it is, it's packaging yourself. It's getting yourself presentable in terms of your product and service, and getting it to the right people. So, you know, any longer, again, there are so many resources, but I don't know if there's a certain example or
As you are explaining, and of course, in relation to also what we have discussed before, which
yeah.
is about value, and of course, we talked about currency and all of that. Now, I'm
Yes,
imagining, how do people decide or choose the type of problem they should solve?
yes.
I'm saying this because we could also um, maybe create the problem that is not there. Then we
Hmm.
make the people believe that the problem is there. Then,
Hmm.
because we want to take advantage of them, that also is a possibility.
Right,
But there are also problems that are there that the people might not know that are there, but we help them to solve the problem.
right, right.
Necessarily, that it might not be a conventional way. For example, imagine, okay, you are good in the aircraft industry, no?
Right,
Okay, now let's imagine the first time the aircraft was designed. It was not there
right,
before.
right,
But the problem that the aircraft needed to solve was there. But there
right,
is no a kind of prototype of, let me do like that. The person who
right,
were designing the aircraft haven't seen a picture anywhere, only the picture in his head. And
right, right, right,
he bring the picture in his head in reality, and he find a
right,
solution to the problem that the people have. That is a
right,
real problem, a real solution to a real problem.
right,
But
right.
if the person was a bad person, he could actually design a problem that
Hmm.
uh, design a solution to a problem that is not there. All he just need to
Right,
do is to first create the problem and then find a
right,
solution and then take advantage of the people. Then
right,
how do we
right.
choose the type of problem to solve? Help me with that.
Yes. Okay. So, and this way, it is important to think about our own personal stories, for example. So sometimes, if we're able to visualize our own problems or about people we care about and love in our life, okay, what are some of the problems that they face? Okay, and so looking at things that are personal, because that way we're invested into it already. We already have motivation. It's not just money. It's something that we want to fix, we want to improve, we want to solve. Okay. So in this way, there's a better basis of ethos. So, and there are so many channels to be able to use that real value based on things we really care about, and that's a good place to start, whether it be for ourselves, but also for the people around us. And okay, I want to solve this person, sister, brother, mother, friend, colleague, whatever. They have this problem. I know this problem. I let's find a way to solve it. This is a good place to start from, because it's actually based on really identifying problems, and that way you can find a solution. Because I think a lot of times what we do is we don't think about problems, we just think about things that are superficial or that give us comfort, whether it be temporary. A lot of people just think about money, and that is, again, we could, with the way things are going with cryptocurrencies, the economy could turn, and a euro or dollar or whatever could have no value. That could happen the way things are going. Okay, so in terms of thinking about amassing money, and that is a resource, that is not the most important resource. It's an important resource, but temporarily, potentially, or even for example, you get to a certain point in your development, in your product, service, in your business. What do you do then? Education. Okay, you need more resources, you need to know more, you need to learn more. Any longer, you can learn just about anything you want on YouTube, for example, okay, or on Udemy, or any of these learning platforms. There's a million learning platforms, etc. You can learn anything you need to, but sometimes you need to learn in person. Sometimes you need to go and see and be there. And this is a great vehicle, because if you find a university, a school, a training program, very often in making that step, which also gives the possibility of going to a different place, or moving to be at the school, you can also learn from where you are. But these sorts of things where you are, it's kind of like playing the game, you could say, in some regards. So, okay, this degree or this certification is going to give me a little bit more value. Okay, so I'm going to do this certification. I'm going to do this degree. I'm going to get this, you could say, badge. I'm going to get this recognition. That is also very helpful for building your business, for building your whatever your value is. Okay, so being able to find ways to get recognition. This can be helpful, and it's a game. We say, I don't want recognition. I know I'm good. Like, no, you're playing a game.
It's always a game. I like that.
It's a game. Yeah,
I like
it's
that.
just a game. Yeah. So
Oh, sorry. No, go on.
No, but it's true. No, and there's people who cheat a lot to win the game. They lie, cheat, and steal, and they win the game. But to be fair, though, there are ways to really win the game. That's not winning the game. The winning the game is just playing it in the best way, like strategy, information, education, knowing what you're doing, just becoming better and better and better. The resources are there, and again, money is just one of them. So.
All right. Strategy yeah. is a buzzword in business. So yes. In the business world, or maybe when you are telling people about business, how to maybe get started in business, because I know that you use the term a lot or so in your online presence. So what would people need to understand about business strategy? What does it mean?
Okay. So one very important thing, and it's very different than the current, you could say, the current ethos or platforms that most companies or businesses use. But the main strategy is not what you can get or receive or take or earn. Okay. That's not your main goal or strategy to use. So like how can I get? It's what you can give, what you can offer, what you can provide. Okay, so if you approach a client, a company, a customer, an associate, whatever, and you're going to be there offering. Okay, you're offering services, you're offering solutions. When I get in touch with the company or with a potential client or a potential investor or potential whatever, association, sponsor, whatever it might be, I'm not asking. I'm going to go there offering. Okay, this is my value, and this is what I can offer to you. It's an opportunity for you to work with me. So I'm going to show you what I can give you. I'm going to show you what I have, what value I am offering. Okay, what solutions I'm providing, and at that point, you can tell me how you value that. Okay, and it's also a matter of, again, really identifying our value. That's why it's important to start from a value base, because at that point, who's going to say no? You say, I've got all these solutions. I wanted to be in touch about this, this sort of thing. This is a helpful approach in strategy. So, when I go to speak to a potential client, I first try to figure out what they need, what they're looking for, what their objectives are. And at that point, I'm like, okay, I can do this and this and this. So now I'm offering you a solution. So this is also another approach to that. And in this, again, starting from a value base, offering value and offering solutions. Okay. And then at that point too, being sure that you do the work that it takes to position yourself in the market. Visibility is important. We have lots of channels of visibility. Okay, we've got social media, we've got internet, we've got other people and their platforms that we can collaborate with, but in the sense of I'm giving, I'm not taking. I'm going to give, and then that person's going to give, and the other person's going to give. So it's it's like a give society, not a take society, because we live very much in a take society, and it's very ugly a lot of the times.
Dog is dog.
Yeah, right, exactly. And let's be cats.
Yeah. All
Which
right.
they do their own thing, and I don't know, they purr, and but it's right. So it's kind of like not play the game, but play it with your own definition, play it with your own rules. Play the game, but make sure, and the more you come from those sorts of a basis which is solid, the higher and farther and more you grow. If you have a base, or like your roots and your foundation, which is, it's not solid enough, then it's gonna crash and crash and crash. So this is a good way to approach also the strategy there. So
Thank you
yeah,
so
and
much.
not being, yeah, no problem.
No.
Oh, the last one too.
Yeah. Go.
Also, when you come from a space of value, it's like no fear, right? Because your motivation is solid. You can contact whoever you want, go wherever you want, speak to whoever you want, offer your service or product to whoever you want, because you know that you have value. And also understanding your value, because I think a lot of times it's easy to not, people say, oh, I don't have money, I have no value. That's not true. Absolutely not true. Value is, there's so many things that have everything. I think really everything has value except for money. Money is the negation of value. It's putting like a currency on what, and that's also important to understand. Okay, that's all.
Thank you so much for that. All right. Now, you are originally from the US, and you live in Europe. You live in Italy. Okay, Italy is Europe. Now, I'd like you to make a comparison for me between maybe starting a business in the US or starting a business in Europe. But of course, I'm not really talking of just starting, I mean running a business, no?
Right.
If you have seen any difference or what you can see as also a comparison. Yeah, please go.
Yes. All right. So I think that no matter where you start from, I think it's important to, again, it's almost like taking into consideration what you have available and using it the best way possible. So, for example, I'll give in the US, there is a lot of competition. It's highly competitive. The economy is it's very different now. It's a very different economy because of inflation. There's been massive inflation in the last 5 to 10 years, and it's like another planet. Okay. One egg costs $1 for €1, for example. Like, it's crazy in terms of inflation. But of course, that's opportunity. Now, opportunity in offering services. So a lot of people that are starting businesses in the US, the competition is massive. It's not easy to start a business in the US, and you have to play the game and play the game by those rules only, and play them in a very, 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 very cutthroat way, aggressive way in the US. Okay, because you're competing with machines, like dinosaurs. Okay, I kind of could think of it like dinosaurs. They're dinosaurs, and they will go extinct. But right now, those are dinosaurs, and they're huge, and they're eating everything all around. Okay, so you can work with the dinosaur, but you're going to play the games of the dinosaur. So, and that's kind of how I consider the US. Now, there are a lot of small businesses that are thriving. There are a lot of entrepreneurs that are thriving, but it is a very competitive place with very high costs, very high. So there you have to play the game. And it's pretty much very little escape from that. Okay. People that live off grid in the States exist, and they basically have decided not to play the game. But again, it's like a subculture. Otherwise, you play the game as fast and hard and with aggressive as you can. So there are good opportunities in the States as well, but I think in terms of clients, in terms of collaborations, in terms of, you can position yourself from wherever you are to be fundamental in what you offer and what you do. And that's a matter of, again, playing that game, So, and in the States, it's very much, in North America in general, very much a numbers game. And the main value is money. And that's one thing that I don't necessarily agree with in world, you could say, in the global planetary importance. I think that's one of the resources. But again, it's too much of the only resource. So people, again, are trying to escape that with cryptocurrencies. They're trying to escape that with, being able NFTs, or even creating apps and creating, that's a way to kind of escape that, the machine of how the US runs. I think there are good opportunities in education in the US. Again, that is a great vehicle to be able to have entry into the US, is through education. And again, that is pushing as hard as you can in terms of pushing. It's packaging your value. Okay. It's like putting it into a beautiful box with nice paper and a ribbon, and this basically. Okay. So, and again, with, anybody has access to resources any longer, in terms of, it's easier to have access to education and learn how to do things. But in Europe, I enjoy European dynamics because of how many nations there are, because of how many countries there are, the linguistic aspects. It's dynamic, it's challenging. There's nationalism. There is pride in each individual language and culture and, cuisine and all of that, which is lovely. Europe is it's a conquering continent. The entire world was conquered, you could say, by Europe. Even the US, we come from European, which that is an interesting off-balance dynamic that we all have in common, right? So, having that aspect is, so Europe has learned a lot in its long history, and then having gone through wars, etc. So there are different dynamics now. I think there is a reevaluation of value. Okay, so I think that is why socialism is in place. But again, Europe is the oldest global culture and society, excuse me. No, it's not. It's the oldest global societies are, that are currently, but of course, to not consider societies that exist throughout the world. But I'm speaking of with this mentality of, it's not a large amount of land, so there was a lot of, looking for additional resources elsewhere and all of that. Okay, so Europe is complex for this reason, but I think in terms of the quantity of people, the quantity of market dynamics, okay, even in preferences, it's difficult, you could say. And also nationalism is a big part. When the European Union came into play here, I had just moved here. I came to Italy when there was still the lira, and the next year the euro came. And these sorts of things are unsettling for people, because it affects your everyday life. And I see often, I remember when there was the globalization movement, even in Italy, where people are afraid of losing their culture. And, what if, I don't know, they take our vacation days away, or we can't have our coffee, for €1, or these sorts of aspects in Italy in particular. But in terms of setting up a business, uh, there are opportunities always. There are challenges always. So it's a good idea to focus on, you could say, what your opportunities are. So in Europe, there's the linguistic challenge, speaking the language. It's still necessary. So setting up business where the linguistic aspects are not going to be an issue, or looking for the opportunities that exist. So what areas are in need of the value that you have to offer. So here there's a lot of regulation. Uh, having the and even in terms of administration, business administration, it's easier in the US, that's for sure. Business administration is wonderful. So it's very easy to register a company. It's very easy to begin commercial activity in the US. In Europe, it's a little bit more difficult. Every company, every country has its different administrative aspects in terms of starting up a company. Is there something specific though that in terms of the two, as a comparison? So do you mean like also in getting customers and in being able to be competitive?
Be able to be competitive would be an important thing to examine. Of course, I understand that maybe it might be an unfair comparison because we are looking at the United States, which is a country, then we are looking at Europe,
Right.
which is a continent. So they are not actually the
Right.
same, no? So
Right.
I
Right.
understand that. But in terms
Yeah.
of
Right. Right.
comparison, maybe played at a global scale, in terms of maybe how, okay, now we are living in an age where basically from wherever you are, you can come to the global scale and play, no? Okay, it's a game like we have been saying till
Yeah,
now.
it's a game. Yeah.
And because most of these rules are actually set up in the United States, even though you are in Europe, you are
Yeah.
still governed by the law that is made in the United
Right.
States, no? Because technology
Right.
basically is coming from the US. And the US, of course,
Right.
have a lot of military bases all around, so it sort of have the
Yeah.
possibility of influencing, even here in Italy, no, influencing the local economy here and most of the places. So the people in Italy or people in Germany or in France, they also want to play the game at the global scale with the United States citizens, as it were. So I'm trying to see
Right.
what kind of comparison we could see there from the point of view of business.
Right. Right. And again, I think it's things work the same a little bit everywhere, and a lot of it is based on connections. So, and that's something that anybody can work on, their connections. And I think that's, it's almost like human exchange. So that aspect of human connection is very important. So and you can build and create, build and expand on human connection anywhere, anytime. And again, the basis of that is always uh, the idea of not wanting to take, but wanting to give. And this really helps in building connections. So I would like to make a new contact for a new area of business that I would like to develop. So I'm going to search for the correct people. We have lots of resources for finding people, and you see if you have a synergy with that person in terms of your value add, what you are offering and what they need. So it's not a matter of give and take, it's a matter of offering and solving needs, creating, giving solutions to needs or problems. So if you build connections that way, then you're building real connections. Those aren't just give and take and, I want and you're so and that is a better way to begin in your ethos and in your strategy. So and building as many real connections as you can, because those are always helpful. And it's also that same thing. All right, I'm going to give you this, so you give me that. No, that's not the right way to approach that. Building connections is offering something, and even as much as whatever it takes for whatever you're looking at, but finding the right people to work with, and they could be anywhere, anytime, in any sector, whoever. And any longer, we can find people that we need to work with, but it's, again, you're not looking to get, you're looking to give.
Thank you.
So
Thank you so much for
yeah,
that. And I
yeah,
appreciate also the conversation, the sharing here. That'll
yeah.
be really valuable. But that is something I would like us to go into. But because of time, because I know you're a business person, you need to take care of other things. So I don't want to spend the whole time here, because usually
Right.
we do spend some time here. So maybe that
Right.
one we can come for it on another day, which is relating to activism and the rest of that, because I also
Yeah.
find that very valuable. All right. So for to sort of move towards the end of this conversation, how can people contact you? How can people reach out to you? Those who want to do business with you, how can they find you?
Yes, sure. All right. So I'll speak a little bit about the current activities. So I'm pretty present on LinkedIn, Sara Sky Schutte. If you look for Sara Sky Stars, you'll find me as a musician, because I also work in the arts and in music. So Sara Sky is the name that I use for a lot of my artistic endeavors, or SSS or S3. I use
Code name.
yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's actually signed on all my paintings. S3, S to the third power, or S cubed. Any case, and then beyond that, I have Skyport Ventures, which is it's basically my umbrella company for everything I do. I work with Dedalo as a co-founder. So Dedalo is the PaaS, platform as a service, and fintech that solves personal and small business debt. I work with Ultra Triathlon Italy, which is it's a sporting event that's currently in Italy that's going to be expanding. We look for sponsorship there. It's a great opportunity. It's one of those like mega ultra triathlon which goes on for 45 days, and there is a triathlon every single day. So it's in the Guinness Book of World Records, etc. And it's one of those amazing sporting events. And it's in northern Italy at Garda Lake. So it's going to be expanding to Mexico, Germany, Spain, and the US, and China in the next couple of years here. So that I work with sponsorship. I also work with a local company who does positioning for digital marketing. So they're called BB's Way, and they work on, for example, all of the digital assets, so websites, social media, communications, campaigns, visibility and positioning, search engine optimization. So anything digital, they have great tools, and also for data, for seeing, what your results are, return on investment, if people are reaching you, user experience and user platforms, etc. So interfaces. So any case, those are some of my current collaborations and current businesses that I'm working on. I do a lot also in human rights, and that's one of the areas that I try to work on as much as possible as an activist. So it's something that I do as much as I can. So there you go. So LinkedIn is a good way. Look for me as Sara Sky Stars or Sara Sky Schutte. Schutte's a little bit more difficult, but you can find me. I think there'll probably be a link here. So please be in touch. I would love to hear from you. Lots of areas of very interesting activities to be on board with. So in any case, I'd love to hear from you if you'd like. That's all.
Thank you so much for that. All right. So what would be your final thought here, considering what we have discussed today about business, about money, and about economy? Briefly, how would you conclude the conversation?
Yes. So I think that, in the way that things are in the world today, it's definitely lots of opportunity. There's so much out there. It is a matter of getting really focused on, again, what your value is and what you have to add to the world. And in starting that way, you can go anywhere. That's what gives us wings, I believe. So, being sure that you are communicating your value anytime, anywhere, any place that you can, and making the right connections and those connections will be happy to know you. They will appreciate you, and that is very important. So reaching out with your value and with what your offering is. So that's that, and staying focused on all the values, not just money, because there are a lot of values, and making sure that those have the right emphasis, uh, and that will make everything, that will change everything. Absolutely.
Thank you so much for that. I appreciate the conversation. I really do. Thank you so much, Sarah.
For sure. Likewise. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, Obehi, and have a great rest of your day and weekend.